Hello, everyone. Thank you for being with me on this Friday. I wish you all a very happy Memorial Day. But I want to start with a history lesson. As you know, I've been in law enforcement my entire adult life, and there was a time in the state of Florida where the felons owned Florida, where they weren't held fully accountable. And I want to talk about this fellow for just a few minutes. Historically, Eddie Thomas, he's 69 years of age. And I want to tell you a sordid history because when you look at this guy, if you want to see pure evil in the flesh, it's this man. So let's go back to October 28th, 1975. October 28th, 1975, he was arrested by the sheriff's office for burglary and grand theft, and he spent 14 days in jail, and they gave him 5 years of probation. Then in November 1975, keep in mind, he's on probation. He's supposed to behave. He was arrested by the Winter Haven Police Department for false report of a crime, and he spent 25 days in jail. Did they violate his probation? No. May 22nd, 1986, he was arrested by the Bartow Police Department for burglary and second-degree murder. And here's what happened. He's a cocaine addict. You know, those people want to tell you it's a low-level, nonviolent drug, okay? It's anything but that. But he was a cocaine addict, so his wife and 4 children, 2 of which were his, moved out and moved home with their mother. And on this particular day, he went to the house, found out that his estranged wife was there, went to the trunk, got a .410 gauge shotgun, went inside and shot and murdered her twice with 2 shots directly in front of the children. Did you hear what I said? He went into the house after getting a .410 shotgun out, shot his wife twice, killing her in front of the children. And then he told the police, well, after he was arrested, I told her I was going to kill her. Now think about this for a second. The horribleness of this premeditated murder. So, but let's go to the arrest. All right, so he shoots and kills his wife. There's a broadcast put out. One of our sergeants notices the vehicle in Winter Haven. He gets the tag number checks out. He spins the car around in order to go stop the guy, and he looks and the car is in flames. And Eddie is coming out of the car fully engulfed in fire. He's burned over 60% of his body. So I suspect at that moment in time that he was going to commit suicide by setting himself on fire because he put accelerant inside the vehicle. But as he got hotter and hotter and started to burn, I guess he changed his mind. So he was taken to Shands and given the very best treatment, and he survived. He was convicted of second-degree murder. Did you hear what I said? Not first-degree murder, second-degree murder, because the felons owned Florida. It was a very forgiving, liberal system to the very worst offenders. So he now is convicted of second-degree murder, burglary, grand theft of a motor vehicle, grand theft of a firearm, and only sentenced to 17 years in prison plus 5 years probation. So at that time, you could murder your wife, be convicted of a second-degree murder, get only 17 years, and that's before your good behavior and that sort of thing. Make a long story short, he's released from that on probation, and he's got 5 more years of probation. Then he's arrested in August of 1997 for violation of probation, February 1998 for violation of probation, and in December 1998, he is booked in the state prison for violation of probation, and released after 4 years. Now let's fast forward. He's not learned from his criminal evil conduct yet. August 2007, he's arrested for sexual battery with a deadly weapon, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. March 2008, he pled no contest to lewd and lascivious contact with a victim between 12 and 16 years of age. So this sexual battery was to a child, and he pled. He was given 15 years in prison with credit for 1,954 days, which he'd been in the county jail. He was registered as a sex offender. Now let's fast forward. It's September 13 when he actually goes into the system. So in 2020, he's released. He spends what? 13 years of the 15 years. You spend about 85% of your sentence, but he's released. And what happens once he's released in 2020? In 2021, he's violated his probation again because he's not conforming with his sexual offender status. We arrest him again. So in September 2021, he goes back to prison for 2 more years. In 2023, he's on probation, and his probation ends on January 2024. So let me bring you up to May 15th, 2025. He is in a group home in the Dawn Heights area of Eaton Park, Florida. The reason he's in a group home is because he's a sexual offender, and it's very limited where you can leave. There's a wonderful lady that's retired from Department of Corrections who has these group homes for sexual offenders because there's limited areas where they can live. Her name is Mrs. Crump. I want to give a shout out to Mrs. Crump. She does a very good job. Now, make no mistake about it. It's not Mrs. Crump that was Andy Griffith's girlfriend, okay? It's a different Mrs. Crump. But she does a remarkable job because she provides homes for these sexual offenders and sexual predators. She cooperates with us. We know where to find them. Because she's an ex-probation officer, she keeps them in line. So she updates this particular home just shortly before Eddie burns it to the ground. And here's what happened. It's about 3:15 in the morning. And he goes to his roommate and says, "Hey, I'd like a ride into town." And his roommate said, "Hey, dude, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. Go back to bed." So he rolls over and goes to sleep. During this period of time, and I'll call him victim number 5, gets up to go to the bathroom. And he sees Eddie wandering around in the house. He says that's not unusual. Since he got off of probation, he's been a total wreck here. And he wanders around at night. We know he's using drugs again, cocaine. But he sees him just wandering around. So he says, I go to the bathroom, go back to bed. And he says, I'm not even back asleep yet till I hear this sound. And this sound sounds like somebody is splashing something. And then I hear a whoosh. Well, we know now he was splashing accelerant in front of every bedroom down the hallway and tried to create a fire barrier so they could not run out of the house. He set the house on fire. He set the house on fire with 5 folks in there beside himself. Victim 1 ran through the flames and ended up being severely burned on his hands and feet. He had to be airlifted to a burn center. Victim 2 crawled out the window. Victim 3 ran through the flames. Victim 4 is on a walker. He slipped and fell. He said the floor was greasy. Something was on the floor. He slipped and fell. And the other victims ran back inside to save his life. Victim 5 once again said he saw Eddie in the house with a container just before he heard the whoosh. Then the suspect drove off. And that was one of the things that confounded his partner. He said, why was he asking me for a ride at 3 o'clock in the morning? He had a car. But anyway, he drove off. So the investigation begins. The fire marshal comes and says there's definitely an accelerant. It's an arson. He's burned the house to the ground. He's burned up other people's vehicles. He's created, once again, evil havoc. He goes to the hospital with chest pain. He stays for 2 days. They release him. Hey, you're good to go. He knows we're looking for him. Then he checks himself in to the mental health area of the hospital at Lakeland Regional Health. And he tells them that, you know, I need some help. I've got mental health issues. The dude is just mean as a snake is what's wrong. So anyway, we locate him. We read him his constitutional rights. And he looks at us kind of glibly and said, I'll take that right there. And they said, which right? The one for an attorney. He did not confess. But I point out once again that this man blocked the hallway with fire to try to keep them from getting out. By the grace of God, they all survived. Mrs. Crump then worked with us, and we had to rehome these folks because they can't just live any place, and we certainly weren't going to let them wander around because of their status, but they're still human beings, and we wanted to make sure that we gave them a place to stay while we searched for Eddie. This man's dangerous. He's 69 years of age. Our goal is that he never takes a breath of air outside of prison, but I want to underscore he tried to murder 5 people that night. After he sexually battered a child between 12 and 16, after he murdered his wife in front of the children, how much meaner and dangerous and evil can you be? So at the end of this investigation, we know who did this. We know that he tried to murder others. And I want you to see that he is successfully locked up in the county jail. Certainly Brian Haas, who is a great prosecutor, I'm sure will ensure that he spends the rest of his life in prison. Are there any questions?
Sheriff, what do you think when you see these pictures of the damage?
I see pictures that should never have been. He was given sufficient time when he did that murder. Had they given him consecutive time, had they not allowed for a plea to second-degree murder, which I'm sure is what happened, or even if the jury had convicted him, he wouldn't be out to do this. If they'd given him the full ride for his sexual battery charge, he certainly wouldn't be out. But this hypersensitive, forgiving criminal justice system in the 80s started this downhill. You see, by not dealing with it in the mid-80s, we had 5 people who, except for the grace of God, would have been murdered today. And Mrs. Crump, who we're grateful for, I underscore, she does great work for us and with us. Her place is destroyed. The place she created to help people, to do good, is destroyed. He has destroyed everybody's life that he's come in contact with.
Can you say what the accelerant was?
We don't know what it is. It's at the lab right now. The witnesses told us it smelled like gas. And, of course, other witnesses said it was slippery on the floor. Now, is gas slippery on the floor, or was it diesel? I just don't know yet. But it was an accelerant.
And just
That's correct.
And you said that they were rehomed while he was on the run. Are they permanently rehomed?
They have to be because they can't live here. I hope she had insurance and can rebuild because these facilities are important. We can go to one place because we check on these sex offenders and sex predators. We keep up with them by law. So it's our opportunity to know exactly where they are. They're all in one place. It makes our job easier. Mrs. Crump also follows up with them to try to keep them out of trouble as well, because if we know where they are and they're not out running wild, then we hope that they don't commit an offense again. But he destroyed infrastructure that was created to help keep them on the path of behaving. So, I mean, there aren't adequate words to share my frustration other than if those 5 people were dead this morning, I'd be standing up here saying they shouldn't have been dead. Well, they shouldn't have been the victim of an attempted first-degree murder. And Mrs. Crump's home shouldn't have been burnt to the ground. So there you go. Bad deal. They said he behaved as long as he was on probation. But when he got off of probation, that he began to have people over against the rules. He began to use cocaine. He was disruptive. And in fact, Mrs. Crump was in the process of evicting him. And because the others complained and said, look, this guy's going to get us in trouble. We got, he's not good. So Mrs. Crump was in the process of evicting him. There's eviction procedures in order to protect those that rent. And that was in progress when this occurred.
Could that have been another motive?
Well, absolutely. We believe it's another motive. He was severely burned, and he severely burned others. He committed murder. He committed sexual battery. It's rare that I present to you someone that doesn't deserve the air they breathe. Here's a poster child for someone who doesn't deserve the air they breathe. He's murdered. He sexually battered children between 12 and 16. He tried to murder 5 people on this particular night. It's like, how many clues do we need? Okay,